Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trek Canon. So, today I'm doing a review of Season 1, Episode 3 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Ghosts of Illyria. Look, 3 episodes in, they kicking ass. This episode was just wow, man. I don't have my Star Trek t shirt on, but, you know, look, let's just get right into it. So, what's going on in this episode is that the Enterprise rose up on Illyria. Right now, for those of you who don't know, we were introduced to Illyria in an Enterprise episode. I believe it was the Enterprise episode "Damage." All right, where um, where Archer and everything. Basically, it was messed up what Archer had to do to him. But we met some Illyrians there. Now, the thing about it is that those Illyrians in that episode were quite different than the only Illyrian we get to see in this episode. But very explainable, and we're going to get into it. So basically, the Illyrians, as we understood in the Enterprise episode, basically, instead of terraforming a planet, they would terraform themselves. They were into genetic engineering on a heavy scale, all right? And we learned from this episode that it was a colony of Illyrians that was wiped out. And the Enterprise's job is to go down and figure out why, get some information, get these information tubules and everything, and bring them back up. Needless to say, Ion Storm rose up because you can't have a Star Trek episode where it's got to be an Ion Storm coming up around somewhere. But Ion Storm comes up. For a few of the away team is able to beam back up, and Spock and Captain Pike has to stay on the planet. Now, this is classic Trek. All right, we are faced with the mystery, right? And the mystery is what's going on with the light thing, this virus that's going around a ship. How are we going to? How's this virus being transmitted? We go into basically the story, how the story is handled from number one's perspective, and from the chief engineer. We got a chance to see a lot of him too, and that guy is hilarious. All right, his sarcasm is right up there with Stamets. Okay, so basically, they're trying to figure out what's going on with this virus that's going around the ship that's causing people to lose vitamin D and act like moths to a flame going towards the light. All right. Now, again, classic Star Trek. The race against time to stop the virus that's going around the ship. Okay. Now, we see in the episode, like I said, it's focusing on how number one is handling this situation because she's in charge on the bridge. And how Rebecca Romaine keeps her cool, the character of number one is able to keep her cool, how she handles things, how she's interacting with the crew members to solve the problems and everything like that, how the crew members are interacting with each other and her to figure out what's going on. All right. Now, they're doing it from a very scientific standpoint, things that you would find in Trek. Now, let's go down to the planet. Of course, like I was saying, Captain Pike and Spock, they basically had to take shelter in the Illyrian structure. All right, all the while they're still trying to figure out what's going on, and still because communications is out and transporters is out. They're basically continuing on with their mission. Now, as Spock is reading these things, we start to find out a little bit more about the Illyrians, how the Illyrians were petitioning to join the Federation, and they were trying to do this by de-engineering themselves. All right, which was the first time we really see that concept in Star Trek. So that was a nice addition. You know, how a civilization, they get to a point to whereas they say, hey, um, we want to become part of something bigger, but to do that is this rule. You know what I mean? And we understand why this rule is in place. Everybody understands why this rule is in place. We even get to go into a little bit of Lieutenant Nunyan Singh, Nunyan Singh. and they address her being an ancestor and how being an ancestor of Khan Noonien Singh uh, has basically, messed with her, and that she knows everything about Khan Noonien Singh. But we could go into, and you could say, well, this is the thing. In Space Seed, when Khan came aboard, um, they were trying to figure out who he was. And I think my first thought when I was thinking about Lieutenant Noonien Singh was that if they knew Khan Noonien Singh, then they would have known that this dude is Khan. It's obvious this dude is Khan. But again, the records were fragmented. But the thing is, if the records were fragmented from that time period, how did Lieutenant Noonien Singh learn everything she did say everything she can, not everything there was. She said everything she can. So I guess from available information. But what I'm getting at is that again, Spock would know Carnelian Singh. And if you think about the episode Spacey, they did once they figured out that this is which of the augments this was. They did have the available records for that, So, but it was just determining who he was, And so, um, I guess I could stand corrected in that particular thought process of keeping in line with canon. But we find out in this episode, like I said, that somehow this virus got on board. We find out that the transporter, well, for those of you who are Trekkies and kind of dive into the tech names and everything like that, you know, um, people always ask, hey, well, how does the how does the transporter know that there's something present if it's never scanned it or been calibrated for that material? And the thing is, with the teleporter, with the transporter, just like they said in the episode, it doesn't need to be calibrated for that. It knows what it transported down. It knows what elements and what how much of those elements it transported down. So if it transports up something that has an addition to, it basically just eliminates it. So we go. So we find out that that it either bypassed the transporter or something happened. All right, and we're going to get a little bit more into that towards the end of this video. And again, spoilers, but y'all know how I roll. So anyway, I love the focus that they had on number one, because again, we don't really get to see much of number one from the original series because of the amount of episodes that she was in before they changed the character of before they changed the character of Major Barrett over to Nurse Chapel. Now, so from the episodes though that she from the episode that she was in though, um, you got a good sense of the type of person she would have been: strong, level-headed, analytical. All right, and they portrayed that well about her in this episode. Now, back down on the planet, uh, Captain Pike and Spock noticed some energy beings amongst the ion storm, and the first thing I thought of, right, was what was that episode from the Next Generation? It was this episode from the next. I don't believe I forgot. Probably because I'm still thinking about how awesome this episode is right here. But it was this episode in the Next Generation, right? Where and as always, I'm gonna put it right here, where Data, Troy, and all of them. I think it was called Power Play, but they were down on this planet, right? And this ion storm is, like I said, as they always do, was coming about, and they had to use transporter and enhancers to get them up. But they got inhabited by these energy beings that happened to be prisoners that was trapped that prison was being trapped in this ion storm, which I can only assume got to be hell, right? But I got the sense that something similar to that happened to the colonists. Okay, to whereas somehow the interactions between them and their genetic engineering and this ion storm kind of put them in there, right? So I was getting kind of that vibe, but it was cool how they made the episode because it seemed like they would be the antagonist. You know what I mean? They would be they're the threat. And what ends up happening is they end up protecting Pike and Spock when the glass breaks. Now, let me tell you what I felt about that. Okay, because again, my personal feelings on Star Trek. My personal feelings on Star Trek is that the conflict isn't amongst Starfleet. We went beyond that. All right. The conflict isn't amongst Federation members. All right. It can be, but that's not really the focus. They are beyond that. All right. So sometimes you're going to run into, if you think about the episode Carbonite Maneuver. That comes to mind. Think about the relationship that that Bill had with Kirk. All right, he seemed like he was going to be the enemy, the antagonist. All right, but through that interaction, they found out what type of person, what type of people Starfleet was. All right, through that, I guess, application of pressure and danger, they found out what he was able to find out what type of person Kirk was, and through that, what type of people he represented. All right, and they ended up forming a dialogue from that. Now, if you think about it, that is how usually Star Trek works. All right, now these energy beings turns out to be Illyrians that, yeah, they did get, they ran out here to die because of the disease that they came out with the light, which forced them into the ion storm. But they end up becoming absorbed into the ion storm and turning into these beings. These beings still held true to their belief that they wanted to join a federation, which meant they had ideals and standards, right, that would cause them to behave as they did. All right, maybe they couldn't communicate with him and be like, "Hey, man, I'm coming to save you, man. Get out of here, man. Hurry up, man." Maybe that was the only way they could do it. They didn't have time to be forming out now, man. Y'all about to die. We could save you guys, and that's what they did. They formed this bubble around the man and protected him. And I love the fact that Pike and Spock, because they had everyone had their beliefs, like I was saying about the augments, all right, and that was played out with uh, um, Lieutenant Nguyen Singh, and with Number One, when she found out Number One was basically an augment as well and had been lying to her all this time. All right, so there was a lot of good character interaction and character growth and character development that wasn't centered or explained through exposition. It was explained through their actions and behaviors as characters, well written in the episode. And I applaud that, because that is the thought, that is the attention to detail and thought that needs to go into a Star Trek episode, which was lacking from all my problem kids, right? So, needless to say, because in all my videos about reviews of Star Trek and episodes, and I hope you guys have noticed this, there's a lot of things that I leave out, a lot of small details and Easter eggs and stuff like that. Even in my spoiler videos, because most of my videos are spoilers, I leave out because I still want you guys to enjoy the video, and I still want you guys to be able to have something to comment on in the comment section. Because I love commenting on things. I love talking to you guys about this. And too bad you guys ain't here. We got watched all the episode together, man. All 300 plus of us, man. We can get to sit down and just all eat our popcorn, man. Have our Tranya, man, and we do our thing. You know, do you guys ever wonder what some of these Star Trek drinks taste like Romulan ale or Cleon blood wine? You know, Tranya. Have you guys ever what was that sunset the guy name was making? The Sumerian sunset. I've They really should. They used to have a anyway. They used to have a place basically. It was called Starbase 31. It closed down, but they used to have a place called Starbase 31. It was in Oklahoma. I wonder if they ever reopened that. But it was a place that you can go that that catered to all things Star Trek. Starbase 31. Wow, that was a long time ago. But anyway, the episode, man. Tell me what you guys thought of the episode. Um, what do you guys think of how Captain Pike handled the conversation with Number One, as far as her being an Illyrian, and how they should proceed with that? And this is another point that I want to make about Star Trek. The captain always fights for the individuals under in his crew, or excuse me, or her crew. All right, No better example than that of Captain Janeway. All right, who did it to a basic fault sometimes, but um, that's their mission. Just like, but they also have missions to protect them not only physically but their rights. Think of how Captain Picard defended Wesley when he was on a planet and accidentally broke that rule and it was about to kill him. Think about how Captain Picard defended Data's rights. You know, which in turn led to Data defending the Exocomps rights. All right, so in Star Trek, um, these are staples of how the crew interacts with each other. All right, and that's why Star Trek has always been the beacon of optimism and of innovation and of progressiveness that it always has been. So tell me what you. So this is my first edit. I don't know what they call that. Cut. I don't know, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention Dr. Mbenga, right? And the plot that was going on with him. And I'm not gonna get too much into it, but it was touching. And if put in that same situation, right, would you do the same thing? And when you think about it, I'm gonna have to say probably no, for the simple fact that everybody did. Ain't nobody gonna be able to help out with that whole being inside the buffer. I wanted to address that. The first time we found that you could keep somebody in a transporter buffer for a very, very long time, right, was when Scotty did a bunch of cool stuff in relics and kept him and a few other passengers inside the buffer, right? Scotty was the only one to survive. Now, he had to do some things. He had to, add some tape, maybe some, a little bit of, candle wax, some things to the transporter, run a few cables, drop a few spider webs in it. I don't know what he did, but he did it. Dr. Mbinga has been keeping his daughter in a buffer. And the thing is that we know that patterns degrade in the buffer. But I think I remember in this episode, he said something along the lines of, ever so often before that process really gets going, he rematerializes her, right? That's got to be tripped out for. Because, all right, they explored being inside of a transporter beam in that whole episode with Barkley. Look, in the Next Generation, I'm going to put it right here too. Let's not get into that. About being, when you're in a transporter beam, you're actually conscious, able to move around and actually grab people and bring them out there. Yes. But it's in canon. So, is this little girl floating around in white space, just looking around, chilling? Like, if she stay there too long, will she turn to one of those worm mouth things? Like, how's that gonna like? How's that gonna work out? But anyway, I just wanted to add that to the video, man, because it was something that I had forgot to chat about for this episode. But yeah, man, that was a touching thing, man. Actually, the way they wrapped up the episode was real touching. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and as always, peace, recycle, and say the rails. You guys be cool.